Hi, I'm Jo. Welcome to Garden of Yoga and welcome to my front belt wrap flying downward facing dog flow. So we're going to be spending a while with the fabric on our hips. If you'd like to use a cushion or a rolled up towel to just be comfortable in that position, you might like to have that on hand. And with your fabric height, it can be at about your hip bones, or know that you can go a little bit lower, especially if you've got broader hips, just to give yourself enough room to get comfortable in that fabric. Because if you add in the cushion or your body is a shape that's going to take up more fabric when you're in there, it's going to creep up higher. And this is a pose where we can use our arms to regulate how high our head is off the ground, so we don't have to worry about that. I'd go a little lower. If you're not sure where you're going to be comfortable, lower is generally better. From here, I'm actually going to start standing and just have a little moment feeling the ground beneath the feet, checking in with your body, seeing how you're feeling today, noticing your breath, noticing your state of mind, knowing that as we move through the class today, this is your practice. So if I'm saying something and it's not feeling right for your body, it's not feeling comfortable, you have full permission to adapt or to come out a little earlier. If you just feel like the fabric is digging in a little too intensely, I'll give different options for that. And there's no pressure to stay in a position that doesn't feel good. That's not what this is about. There might be some new and different sensations that show up, and that's a real benefit of the practice. But the whole goal here is to move in a way that feels right in your body today. I'm going to use my next inhale to just really expand into the lungs, into the rib cage. And then on the exhale, I'm going to start to gently nod the chin forward and gently roll forward through the spine. If it doesn't feel good for your back to round, you could always hinge forward with a straight spine, and totally fine to bend the knees. Breathing in here, and then on the exhale, you might like to start to round and roll your way up again, drawing down through the armpits as you come up. It's almost like a standing hat pose. An inhale to stand tall, collarbones broad. And then on the exhale, lengthening forwards, totally fine to bend the knees if that feels better for you, especially in these warm-up ones as your body's warming up. It's a nice time just to check in, to notice how your spine's feeling today. If there are any sensitive spots or any cranky spots, that's good to be aware of as we move into the practice, so we can be extra mindful with those areas. Next time we come forward, I'm going to give the shoulders a little bit of extra attention. You think of gently stretching the hands away from each other. Little fingers pressing down in the fabric, outer armpits rolling inwards. I like to connect into the lower ribs a little bit more. Thinking of finding a little bit more length between the crown of the head and the tip of the tailbone. You can grip the fabric, but it's a really good strength practice for the hands to try and keep those hands nice and broad and spread. And I'm going to keep pressing down through the palms of the hands, drawing down through my armpits as I gradually make my way back up. And an inhale at the top. Add a little side to side on the next one. We'll exhale to come forwards. Breathing in to stay. Next breath out, little side bend. You might like to bend one of the arms. Might like to bend the knees, just seeing how it's feeling for you. Again, treating it as a warm-up for your spine. Hammock might make some sounds. And the next time you come over to one side, just notice what feels good, whether it's more chest facing down towards the ground or more opening your chest out to the side, whether it's bent knees or maybe one leg bent, one leg straight. Plenty to explore from here. Try it over to the other side. Might be the same, might be different. I'm going to come back to center. And again, making my way back up. Shoulders drawing down. You can add a little balancing flow with the leg. And inhale to stand tall, and then on the exhale, taking one leg back behind. My standing leg is a bit bent. There's lots of different balance things that we can try from here. We can draw the knee in, maybe take that leg out. You can take it out behind us. You could even take it over to one side and maybe continue with the arms stretching in that direction as well. Feeling like you're pulling the legs in towards each other. This can be a really great stretch for QL, side of the lower back and outside of the hip. We'll make our way back to center, working the balance. And then lower. Have a little moment to rebalance, to check in. We'll lift up our other leg, we'll take it back. Standing leg is strong, so sometimes a bit of a bend in the knee can be helpful with that, keeping those quads really working for you. Thinking of engaging your glutes to lift that back leg up. You might pull the knee in. You could take the leg forward. Toes could always stay lower to the ground or even on the ground. And we'll take it out to the side. And again, just breathing into that side body stretch while also working the balance. And we'll make our way back to center. And then from here, I'm going to show you how to put the cushion in the hammock, but you might not need to. If you're comfy with the hammock on your hips, you're good. If it feels like it gets a bit sore sometimes, just putting a rolled up towel or a flat cushion. I made this one, but you can definitely improvise, can really help. Just distributes the weight of the fabric out a bit more so that you don't have a sharp edge digging into you. If you've put the cushion in, you might like to have your hammock a tiny bit lower in space to take up the room of the cushion or to accommodate for the cushion. And I've just pushed it down on my hips, give it an extra little push forward so I know it's underneath my hip bones, hinging forward from the hips, bringing the hands down, walking the feet back, checking in, seeing if you need a little readjust, even a push with your hands to make sure that cushion is in a good spot. And then from here, I'm going to come to something that's kind of like a plank pose. I could be more flat on my hands or more up on my fingertips. I'm going to inhale to prepare, and then as I exhale, one knee draws in, other leg goes long. Exhale, knee in, inhale, leg long. And so you could see how we were just doing something similar standing, so you could come back into the standing version, just working it as a standing balancing pose rather than this plank variation. And then from here, we can do some straight leg lifts. And that's also something you could do with your hands holding the fabric if it was feeling a little bit too intense on the hips from here. And then from here, if you were still standing holding the fabric, you could come back into the side to side. If you're feeling pretty comfy with the fabric around the hips, we can wrap the legs around. So I went wide and around, and I hooked my toes back in, and then I can move a little side to side from here with the hips. Arms could be long or bent, just whatever feels good for you. Or you could be doing the standing variation, standing on the floor and going from side to side with the arms instead. From here, I'm going to just unhook my feet and bring ankle to thigh. Breathing into that stretch. And so the people who are feeling really comfortable with the hammock around your hips, you'll stay here. If you needed an alternative option, you could have the fabric around the back of the chest and work the ankle to thigh stretch from here. Just breathing into it. And while I'm standing, I'm just going to show you another standing variation. which is both hands in the fabric, one leg forward, one leg back, standing hamstring stretch this way. If you were feeling pretty comfy with the fabric on your hip flexors and you'd been working that glute stretch, now what we're going to do is wrap both legs around the fabric, and the leg that you just glute stretched is going to come down, and now it's going to get a hamstring stretch. And it could just be the leg in space, or you could reach through with one hand or both hands. Both hands, I feel like I get the most for my hamstrings. If I do opposite side arm, I get a bit of a twist and a bit of a shoulder stretch, which can feel really good from here. And I could go up higher with my fabric leg to get a little bit more of an opening through the front of that hip. And then from here, if you're feeling good with the fabric on your hips, we can wrap that leg back in and we can make a way into a little side to side again. People who are standing, you'll just come back to that side to side with the hands in the fabric. And I'll go my other glute stretch, other ankle to thigh, drawing in. Whichever option you've chosen, you might like to just check in with the neck, making sure that the neck is nice and comfortable here. Remembering you could also have that fabric wrapped around the back of the chest and be doing this as a standing pose instead. And then we'll move to our hamstring stretch. Whether it's standing or holding the foot with both hands, or maybe with one hand. If you're doing the one hand version, your hand is going to want to pull the leg sideways, so make sure you push your foot into the hand, or the shin into the hand, as well as the hand into the leg. And then from here, I'm going to unwrap that leg, and there's a few options from here. Depending on your proportions, you might feel super secure with your feet tucked into the fabric like this. If that's the case for you, you could keep your hands on the ground and cross the hands over each other and breathe into the stretch from here. If it's feeling like that's not steady and like you might tip out, unhook the feet, and you can either draw the knees in and give yourself a hug from here, or the standing version of this pose is to stand on the ground, give yourself a hug from here, and of course, you don't even have to be in a forward bend. You could be standing upright and enjoying the stretch from there. Similar shoulder stretch no matter what angle your body is in space. And then we just swap arms. And that would be the same if we were working from the ground as well. We could just swap over, other arm on top. I'm going to land my feet back down. I'm going to make my way up to stand. I really don't need this cushion in here now, so I'm going to get rid of that. If you feel a little dizzy, that might have been a bit of a quick exit, so you might just stand holding the fabric or even having it behind you for support as you recover your equilibrium, getting used to being right way up after being upside down. And then from here, this is one of my favourite shoulder stretches. I'm going to wrap the fabric around my wrists, interlace, and I can stretch forward from here. I might like to keep the arms long. I really like to bend my elbows, and it's already feeling good from here, but I can come back into little mini cat-cow with the upper body. Really getting to some of that in between the shoulder stuff. And there's one more move that I'm going to show you, which is getting a little bit more upper body intensive, or could be quite a back strengthening move. So I'm going to show you the fabric at the hips version first, but know that if that's just not your cup of tea, there's a floor version coming for you. So I'm going to take that fabric again, just below my hip bones, pushing it down, hinging forwards, walking back, spreading the hands out. I'm going to wrap the legs wide and around and hook the toes in. So this is a balancing pose. Take it slow. I'm going to use my core to squeeze in with my legs and start to lift up through the tailbone. So you can see I'm working my balance from here. But if I keep it a little bit lower, I can just work to that place where I feel like I have control here. I don't feel like I'm going to tip over or sideways, but you can see there's a little bit of a tremble and a little bit of a shake as I work to maintain my balance. So that is one option to work with. What we can also do, so making sure the microphone's not in an awkward spot, is come down. I'll go this direction. Take my feet in the fabric. So turned out is more stable because I've really hooked my feet behind the fabric. They're not going anywhere. Making sure the turnout comes from your hips, not just your ankles. If that's just an awkward position for your knees, you can have your feet together, but just be really aware that your heels are staying securely in the fabric. And then the first phase of this is rolling up through the spine, noticing how that feels. I like to move on the breath out so I can get a easier access into connecting into my deep core muscles. On the exhale, staying on the breath in, lengthening out the spine as I lower on the breath out. The next little thing that you might like to try is lifting up the hips and then squeezing the heels in and lengthening the legs away from there. So I've got my legs in parallel, but it also works in the turned out position. And so you can see how we're building some of the same strength and stability that we would be in the previous pose that I demonstrated. That same sense of having to work to stay steady as we move through space and integrating the action of the legs into the core. This one I feel a bit more in my hamstrings and glutes. The other one I feel a bit more through the front of the thighs and deep into the belly. But either way, it still feels pretty strengthening. I'm going to make that my last one and slowly lower back down. And if you were standing with the fabric at your hips, handstanding, taking your time, we're all just going to make our way back to standing beside the fabric. And so this is how we began, standing up. This is how I'm going to end. A little time to check in. Standing nice and tall for the inhale, and then on the exhale, rolling through the spine. Noticing how the shoulders feel, noticing how the spine feels, noticing how the breath feels. And so hopefully you found some options in our practice today that let you explore these postures in a way that feels really good in your body. This pose could be a self-contained, or this sequence could be a self-contained practice, so you could just unfurl your hammock and get in and have your relaxation now, or you could go on to some other moves, whatever feels good for you. I just want to thank you so much for joining me today. Thanking you all.